Guys, this is KMKanDrum, and here is another episode of Q&A with KMKanDrum. And today I have the awesome and invigorating Mike Conway. And I'm looking at your channel right now. It's Mike Conway Drum Covers. It looks like your username is Conway Creative. So if you guys aren't subscribed to his channel, please subscribe to his channel. It's totally worth it to go over there and check out some of his videos. Every time I watch a video of his, I'm left smiling because he just has this great enthusiasm when he plays any of his covers, which made me want to do this interview. I haven't done one in quite a long time. It's probably been at least a year. I know I've been doing a lot of covers on my channel, but since I've got the new studio up, but I haven't done any interviews. And Mike, you're the first person that I really wanted to nail down and get to know and talk to, and just so other people in the drum community can kind of know the guy behind Mike Conway, the YouTube channel. So great for you. I'm glad that you were able to come along. I guess
Thanks
first
for
thing,
having me.
yeah, of course,
Yeah.
it's my honor. Um, I guess the first thing I would like to know is I, I kind of want to get to know you, the person, before, and we'll get to drums because we know that we'll be able to talk a lot about drums. But first of all, maybe tell a little bit about yourself, where you're from, maybe, or what you do. Are you a family man? What's going on with Mike Conway, the person?
Well, I'm a Midwestern guy. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, which is right like smack dab in the middle of the country. So in the heart of flyover country, as we call it, because, people are either going to the West Coast or the East Coast, or the two interesting places in the country, and we're that big swatch of land that they have to fly over to get to where they want to go. So I grew up in St. Louis, and I've been here my whole life, and briefly left to go to school in Indiana, and then came back, and I work in graphic design, which I think you do as well, Kelly. I found out.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of work on the computer, and I guess I'm married. I've been married for a very long time, since '92, so almost 20 years. Have two children that I love very much, and they are both here in town as well. And you know, my story is, as far as the drumming, and we'll get into that later, but it's kind of an interesting story that it seems like a few of the other guys that you've interviewed have similar stories, where there was a lot of learning the drums and things like that when I was young and in school, and then attempting to be in some bands, and then I became a family guy in my mid 20s, and so kind of hung up the drums for I mean, I didn't start drumming again until like 2010, I want to say
Okay.
2009, 2010. So it was acoustic drums back then, obviously, and then I got an electronic kit, and I'm a suburban guy, so there's houses on either side of me, and I didn't really have the means or ability to try to soundproof a studio in my house, and so the acoustic drums were just so loud, and I couldn't do that to my neighbors.
Yeah.
So, and then with the electronic drums, I didn't know anything about electronic drums. I was in the music store one day, and I saw a Yamaha kit. I'm like, wow, and I'm like, this is kind of cool. Everything's coming through your earphones, and it just sounds like loud tapping. I mean, like, this might be something that works for my situation anyway. So that's kind of how I fell into the electronic drum world.
That's really cool. Really cool. Yeah. There's actually, to go back on a couple of things that you said, there's actually a couple of guys that are in this drum community that are graphic designers as well. I know right off the bat. I don't know if you're familiar with AR drummer Adam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's a graphic designer as well. And yeah, I think what's interesting is I got to interview Hube drummer.
Yeah,
He's
you,
since
you get the
deleted
name
his
on
channel.
there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he deleted his channel just like out of the blue, but he's got a similar story to you where he kind of played when he was younger, left it for a while, and then just bought an electric set. and just kind of did it as a hobby. No real background other than that,
Yeah.
besides, and he had a great channel, like over like almost 3,000 subs, and
I wonder what happened to
um,
his channel, because I did look at that interview and then I went to go check it out, and it said no longer available. I'm like, man, unless he changed names maybe and still has the content up, or I'm not sure. Yeah.
well, I actually reached out to him and I talked to him and I was like, oh, what's going on? And he's I guess he's just one of those people that um when he's not feeling it, and he just moves on to the next thing. And that's
Wow.
basically what he told me. He's like, I'm not into the drums anymore. I'm not into all the work that it takes to do the channel, which it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
People only see the 2 or 3 minute videos, but it takes so much more
Yeah.
behind the scenes. So yeah, he was just over it, and he
Wow.
decided to take the channel down. It's obviously it's not about for him. It's not about the money or the notoriety or whatever. It's
Yeah.
just
Good for
he's
him.
living in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Good for him. That was a great interview.
Yeah, he's interesting because I think he's like a therapist or something like that.
Yeah.
So he really got in depth, and it was almost like he was interviewing me at
Yeah.
points because he would ask a
That's how
question.
I feel, honestly. It's like you got so much more interesting stories than I do, I'm sure. I mean, that's like I need to get to I need to get your story. Yeah, I'm sure you've probably told a lot of it through all the interviews. I didn't have time to see all of them, but it's such interesting stuff, and it's like I feel like my story is just kind of like, I'm a hobbyist, a drummer, and I the YouTube thing I just started, I was probably late to the game starting the YouTube channel, and I've kind of learned a lot as I've gone along, but I don't give lessons, and I don't gig all the time like all these other drummers that have all this talent and stories and things that I don't have. So I mean, it's interesting. I love the online drum community just because there's all levels are there. It takes a lot to put yourself out there like that, and a channel like yours, it's amazing to me that this technology that was available when I was growing up. Albums, it was all record stores and radio, and all that technology from those great studios is available on your laptop computer nowadays. It's just amazing to me the how it's come along. And it's just it's a great I think it's a great format and outlet for me, just as a hobby. I'm not interested in the monetizing and any of that stuff. I love watching other people do their takes on covers and all skill levels. It's a blast, and then you can reach out to people across the world. It's just amazing to me. There's these guys over in I don't know, they're on the other side of the globe, Japan or wherever, and it's amazing. I think it's just the world has gotten so much smaller through technology, and the ability to do such quality music and stuff as a hobby in your home is just so the potential is awesome just because of the technology. It's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah,
you know
yeah. I mean, we when I first started my channel, it was back in 2017, I want to say, and the main reason why I started a channel was because um, I had a personal YouTube channel, and I just put up a drum cover, and someone from Japan reached out and said, "Oh, this is a great drum cover. You should join this group that we've got on." Back then, we had Google Plus, and I met all most of the guys that are in the community now, and yeah, it was crazy for someone from Japan to reach out to me. And then now we've got guys in Australia, we've got guys in Brazil, we've got guys in the UK, and it's just like, to your point, technology has made the world a lot smaller. But then when you want to go and meet these guys, it's still really big, and it's
yeah.
it's $1,000 to go across the pond and meet some of these guys, or maybe $2,000 to go to Japan, and it's just like, oh, I really wish I could just walk next door and talk to Chirdoy Drumma from I think
Yeah.
he's in Adelaide,
Yeah.
Australia. That's a 20
Yeah.
something hour flight. It's not going to do that anytime soon. So it's yeah. it's a double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, it's great that we can all talk to each other, but man, I really wish I can have that old school person to person, in person contact. Skype is great, like, and YouTube is great, and being able to talk to each other. But there's just something to me about like being in the same room with somebody. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's awesome. I've gone through stages where I wish I could be monetized and turn this into a career.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that everybody kind of takes for granted is once you get to the monetized level, you put in all this work. That's just the beginning. So for me, like it took a long time to get monetized. It was a lot of work, and then I realized that you're gonna have to do a lot more work. So for me, it's kind of like I'm not into that anymore. I just want to do it exactly how you're doing it as a hobby for fun. I'm gonna put something up. If people like it, that's fine. If people don't like it, that's also fine. I'm not looking to, become the next YouTube star on drums and whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a big eye opener when you get monetized. It's like, ooh, do you want to keep doing this whole thing? Because it is a full-time job.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
It's
I
the dream, I think, or you know what I mean. It seems it's obviously a tempting thing when you're on YouTube, and it's kind of it's a platform, and so it's like, it does cross your mind, I suppose. But I never thought about that end of it, where it's like, okay, now there's pressure, and now
exactly.
it's the downside of of actually something that seems like it should be good, being monetized. That never occurred to me. So interesting point.
Yeah,
Very.
I mean, I've been watching. I'm weird. I watch a lot of YouTube, and there's these guys
We're
in
all
Japan.
weird.
No kidding, right? Um, but there's these guys that have these like fish channels where one guy goes and actually spearfishes. He'll come back and he'll clean the fish and he'll prep it and he'll cook it. And there's a bunch of different copycats of that. And it's almost like they all try to one up each other. So somebody will do like this crazy rare fish, and then the other guys will see it and they'll want to do that fish as well. So everybody's trying to one up each other, and it becomes a competition, and it's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what happens when um cook all the fish that you can cook? Now you got to think of something else, and you got to think of something else, and it's like
Yeah, boy.
it's just way too much work for me.
That's
I just
yeah.
want to drum and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. And, I'm the same way. It's just my my taste in music or whatever. It's like, I'm like you. It's like if I really wanted to be the most popular or get the most eyeballs, I'd be drumming to whatever the latest hit song is, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, man, I want to play drums to like the songs that I personally like, and I'm like you. If other people like it, that's cool, But I'm it's no fun drumming if it's like you're not really into the song itself, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I, it's like I don't know. I mean, I don't, I'm not, I guess, trying to be like a taste maker, or if YouTube has to be you have to be on a trend constantly, I guess, once you're monetized, or you have to get the eyeballs. At that point, it's like, man, yeah, that's pressure, man. Jeez.
It is a lot of pressure. It's a
Yeah.
lot of unnecessary. I mean, I guess it depends. It depends on, what you want out of
Yeah.
this whole thing. But for me, just wanting to play exactly what you said, play the songs that I want to play, not play the songs that other people want to see. Um, yeah, it would totally be a job if that were the case.
Yeah.
Just like any other job, if I'm not feeling the music, it's definitely a job. It's something that it would be work. You'd have to put work into it. When you're playing songs that you love, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, that's a quote from somebody. Yeah, if you do what you love every day, you'll never work a day in your life, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty rare for people to have a career in a job that they do, for meaningful income. That is something that they absolutely love and would just do as a hobby. You know what I mean? I think That's probably pretty rare. Although maybe everybody else out there is like, well, you're nuts, man. I love what I don't know, but I mean, I think there's probably every job has it. That's what I tell my kids. I'm like, you're never gonna find a job where it's just like, oh, I just do what I love and it's great. I get paid. And, I'm like, every job you got to deal with people, other personalities that don't like you or that you don't like, or there's gonna be conflicts. There's gonna be drama. It's just any job comes with all that stuff. So that's why, it's like, I guess if your YouTube channel, which is supposed to be your fun, outlet and your hobby becomes like that, then it's like, well, this isn't cool. So maybe the dream of like having this big monetized, drumming channel is probably, there's probably a big downside to that too, that I'm not even thinking of. So good
Yeah.
point.
Great point. Great point. It's like, you can probably attest to this as well, because anytime I go out and people ask me what I do, I'll say, "Oh, I'm a graphic designer. I do video editing for other people." And out here, I live in the burbs of Philly, and it's mostly blue collar. There's my neighbor's a cop. My other neighbor's a salesman. Got people in the medical industry, so not very artistic, very blue collar. So, whenever I introduce myself or get to know new people, and I say I'm a graphic designer, they're like, "Oh, that's really cool." And I guess it sounds cool, but you and I probably know it's not glamorous at all.
I know the stuff I'm doing isn't not. I don't
Yeah,
know.
the,
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
title's
know that
cool,
is
but
true.
yeah,
It's true.
it's we're just what do you call it? People come to us with visions,
Yeah,
and we're just kind of the tools to put it into the computer.
yeah, especially in the I don't know. I've never had like a job, a graphic design job on in like New York or in LA or something where there's probably a little bit more creative minded clients coming to you. But like in the Midwest, it's like people come to you and the clients themselves are going to be pretty conservative, probably, you know what I mean? And so it's like they're not exactly going to want the edgiest of like design and things like that, you know what I mean? It's like you always think, oh, graphic designer, I'm going to do like, album covers and CD covers and, logos for bands and, Mountain Dew, this, that, I get these cool clients and have a lot, and it's just like, not so much, probably.
Well, I mean, I grew up in Los Angeles, and
Yeah,
I
no, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It's like you've been there, you've been in that actual community. So yeah, you were a musician there, were you not?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
grew up there and did the whole Hollywood scene.
awesome, dude.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, I worked in LA as a graphic designer, worked in New York as a graphic designer, and I think it's probably worse because those minds are so artistic and so eccentric and so trying to push the envelope that it's almost like you for me, and I always say the grass is never ever greener. Like for me, I want more order. I want something more
Structured or
structured.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's almost like both sides are, you just can't ever be happy. You just like dealing with someone who's very in the box and conservative. I can see how it can get boring, but someone who's completely out of the box and all over the place, it's hard to, rail it in.
right.
And, and it's like, you just gotta, you're dealing with all these different personalities, and especially in LA, it's just like, whew, they're out there. Um, so, like, yeah, I just always say the grass is never greener. It doesn't matter where you're at. You're gonna find people that are easy to work with. You're gonna find people that are hard to work with, no matter what you're doing. And yeah, to me, just like whenever I'm talking to my neighbors or whatnot, I just say it's the same. It's the same as any other job.
Yeah,
And this whole YouTube thing, I can only imagine, like, if I think the only reason why I started the YouTube thing was because it's just me. I'm doing everything, so I don't have
yeah,
to worry about somebody else. But I think if your channel got big and you needed to have a team of people, then you're dealing with different personalities, and it's just like it
Uh,
becomes another job, you know?
that's right, man. Yeah, that's what I'm sticking with. That there.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you some
One of the things to do is
questions.
you can never be happy. So I mean, this is we're getting into some meaningful stuff here. This is
Yeah.
stop bitching, and you can never be happy. So be happy with what you have.
Yeah.
No
Yep,
bitching.
exactly. No complaining, no whining,
No,
just
that's right.
as long as you do what makes you happy, I think
Yeah,
it's also it's a good outlet, right? Because when you're doing your regular work, you need something to kind of escape all of that. And for me at least, I'm sure you're the same way, that the YouTube is that escape.
oh, yeah, yeah. It's just and, it's one of those things where you kind of lose track of time when you're doing it, or I mean, probably not when you're producing and and editing and video and all that, but I mean when you're just kind of behind your kid and you're trying different stuff out, or you're playing to just songs that you know how to play, and um you lose track of time. It's like that's time really well spent. I think I think that's a sign that it's something that you just can really relieve stress and just kind of be a great outlet to just relax and be in your happy place, I guess is how you'd put it nowadays. you
Yeah,
know
yeah, totally.
but and I try to do that, and then with the YouTube thing, it's like I always you start filming it, and then it's like, oh man, this is getting to be a little bit a little bit more stiff, and just kind of like so that, like you said, I always, it's in some of my later videos, it's like I was trying to be real conscious of, have fun, even though you're playing something that's probably challenging, and you're trying to concentrate and things like that. But I always try and be cognizant of this is it's a fun thing you're doing. So I don't want my drum face to be so serious, I guess, or even more strange as they sometimes are. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I got the video and it's like, oh my god, I gotta redo that, man. That's a weird looking face.
Yeah, oh man, there's so many times where I in my head I look cool, and then
Yeah.
I I look at the video, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Like that's pretty rough. I may have to redo that part there. Yeah.
No, but for you, I can honestly say, out of all the YouTube channels that I've seen, um, consistently every single video I watch, and I see you just having fun, bashing it out. It really is a special thing, and I think if you're ever playing a song and you're not feeling what your face is portraying, uh, you're acting really, really well, because from start
Yeah.
to finish, it looks like you're just having a blast. And I hope that that never changes, because that's why I go to your channel all the time and watch all your videos.
Well, that's
Makes me feel good.
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it it should be fun, and a lot of times it's like you put so much work into rehearsing these things, or like I think I commented on one of your videos once. It's like you ever get that deal, like what is this deal where you're like there's this one fill or something in the song, it's like toward the end of the song, it's coming up, you practiced it like 50 times the day before. I'll do these things where I practice it on a loop. You know what I mean? I'll do like a measure before, the measure with the fill, and the measure after. So it's like I know I can do this fill. I've done it 50 times perfectly. And then you're filming the video, and here comes that part in the song. And it's like, man, I screwed it up again. I just don't understand the phenomenon. I'm like, what is the deal?
Yeah.
I cannot figure that out. I'm like, man, now I'm going to go practice it again. So then I'll turn everything off. I'll sit down and I'll practice it on a loop for another, 15, 20 minutes. I got it down. Perfect. Roll the cameras, start the song. Here comes that same part again. Up, here it goes. Up. Oh, man. I did it again. I don't understand it. I feel like, it is frustrating stuff when you're trying to practice the song, and it's like when the time comes to finally play it, it's like at least have some fun, or at least, like you said, look like you are anyway. Because it does become work if you're not careful. You know what I mean? I guess is what I'm saying. And it's like, you're working on something that you don't know how to do yet. And so you want to get back to the place where this was a cool and fun song to play, and hopefully you know it well enough to where you can still pull off the fills and all the maneuvers that you need to do, and have some fun doing it. So that's kind of why I don't post a whole lot of covers. I'm sure you noticed. It's like, because I just it takes me forever. I mean, it takes so long to I like to get a song like pretty far into my comfort zone, you know what I mean? And I usually challenge myself with like something that has like, it'll have those 8 notes on the hi-hat foot or something. There's always something that I try and challenge myself with that is not in my comfort zone at all. And then, when you're going from something like that, because my left foot sucks. I mean, it's like I gotta train that thing like, like Rocky. I gotta go into training to get it to like, and have feel and all that. And so it takes me forever just to do these covers that are pretty simple, you know what I mean, drumming wise, but it's just like I get to the point where I want to know how to do this and move this kind of skill into my comfort zone so I can play it, and like you said, show that you're having fun playing it and that you're comfortable with it. That for me can take a long a long time. So that's sometimes I'm like working on one song and I'll have a bunch of challenging parts, and then I'll do a parallel thing and I'll just work on a song that's a little bit simpler, and I'll put that video out, but I'm still working on this one song. Yeah. So there's always like a song or two where it's just like, I still don't know how to play that completely correctly, but I can squeeze out like a couple of other videos in the meanwhile. So that's the way it is for me. I don't have near the talent of some of these other, YouTube drummers that are just jaw drops. It's so amazing. It's a great inspiration to go to everybody else's videos and see what they got out there. You especially. I mean, your channel is so professional, quality wise. I mean, just the video editing, the sound, the playing. I mean, everything. I don't know if you're using drumless tracks for your stuff or not. I can't even tell. I mean, it sounds like it's a recorded. It sounds like you are on the drums on those songs. So I kind of need to figure out how you're doing that. But
yeah,
that's my process anyway. It's kind of an arduous one, I would say.
I mean, I think you said that you try to play songs that are somewhat easy. I mean, you're doing stuff like Van Halen, Alex Van Halen. That's not easy at all. Like I kind of split drummers into two. There's the drummers that are really technical, like Van Halen or Neil Peart from Rush, Tim Alexander from Primus. Those real technical, almost mathy type of drummers. And then there's the feel drummers that kind of just play along to the music. They don't do anything really special, but their feel is just right on. Yeah. And then there's kind of guys that blend in the middle, like John Bonham. He's got a good balance of technical and feel.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of more on the feel side, and I'm actually the opposite of you. I try to, or I think I'm doing what you're doing in my head, but really I'm sticking to my comfort zone, which is a lot of feel stuff.
Yeah.
And I try to get more out of my comfort zone, but I've really only done it a couple of times. I've done one Primus cover. I just recorded my first Rush cover that's going to come out later. But yeah, usually I'm just in my comfort zone, and I applaud you for doing things that are out of your comfort zone and giving that insight to your channel, because I did notice that you aren't consistently putting out videos. You put out videos whenever, and which is fine. It's great. But to know your process and why that is, and for you to say, oh, it's because, I'm learning this song and I want to get something that's out of my comfort zone into my comfort zone. That's like, I never even thought of that to even do that. Usually what I do is I'll just go, I'll pick a song that I'm pretty familiar with in the first place. And then I'll go and I'll play through it once or twice. And if I can go get through from beginning to end, I'll hit record. And sometimes it'll take, if there's one, like you were saying, if there's that one fill that I just keeps messing up, it might take me 20 takes, but I'll be focused on that filling and getting that fill right, because the rest of the song's good to go. But usually it only takes me about 4 or 5 takes to get a song up, and then that's it. So 95% of my stuff is all, I'm already in that comfort zone.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
for you to come out and say, look, I'm playing something that's completely out of my comfort zone and I'm making it my comfort zone, that's like, I actually want to apply that now. I want to look for a song that's out of my comfort zone, put it into my comfort zone, and then put it out there. I'm gonna try that. I think it's awesome. I hope other people are doing that too. Probably they probably are. It never even occurred to me to do that.
yeah. Well, word of advice: just do that on a parallel path while you're doing the other videos, because otherwise it'll take you forever, like it does me. It's like, I need to be more conscious of. I need to get some stuff out there that I know I can play. You know what I mean? And just to keep my content a little more current. But that'd be that'd be the downside of trying to do that stuff. But I mean, I think from what I've seen on your channel and that Primus song, I was getting ready to I was getting ready to cover that same exact Primus tune that you did, which is that is a crazy hard song to play on the drums. And so that would be an example of, I think the difference is, your comfort zone is a lot bigger of a zone than mine is. Because if you're just doing a few takes on that Primus song and then you're able to hit record and come out with something that's that tight and that good, I mean, that's your talent level and skill level is much higher than mine is. That's for sure. So,
Well,
kudos to you. It's like I was just getting ready to start kind of, wrapping my head around what he's doing in that song, and the left foot, incorporated and all those things. And like I said, my left foot, it's I'm like left hand and left foot are like weak spots, and I'm always trying to challenge myself on those two limbs, especially, where incorporate them somehow to and keep them in time and behaving, and it's just I that's why I don't put deadlines on myself, because it's like I just gotta start this at at a slow pace. I'll put a metronome on at whatever 60 beats per minute or whatever, and just start slow until I can kind of get this stuff mapped out and figured out.
yeah.
So, but no, anyway, what I was saying was, I think your skill level and comfort zone is such that you don't probably need to do what I'm doing, because if you're the stuff you're playing is very challenging, or at least it would be challenging for me. So,
Well, I mean, I've listened to that song since 93, 94. So
yeah, I have to, but it still doesn't mean I can play it.
because it's funny because I think from that same album they have a song called "Is It Luck,"
Mhm.
and would play that album all the time when I was younger, and that song actually gives me a really really hard time because kind of got like this roll solo in the middle of it, and the timing is a little weird. It's kind of funky, so I've never been able to actually play that song. But I think I'm gonna try your method. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna slow it down. I'm gonna map it out, and all that stuff, and see if I can actually do that. I think that'll be a really good one to start off this new challenge, this
Oh
Mike
yeah.
Conway challenge.
You would kill it. I mean, you got some serious skills, dude. That would be cool to see. I mean, I'm starting at a point, like I said, I laid off the drums for so many years, and got back into it, and then moved to e drums, which are different than acoustic drums. I mean, I know that there's a big argument about which is better or whatever, but I mean, they are different. And so adapting what playing style I had to the e drums, and then trying to kind of up my game and learn skills that like during the 90s, when all those metal, those double kick, metal groups were the rage. I was like raising kids, and I was kind of like out of the game completely, so that I have like huge blind spots when it comes to certain music, just genres or time periods of music. That'd be one of them probably. But obviously, it's like you can respect the talent and, the skills of that genre of music. And so it's like, that would be another one where and the songs are cool, it's like, it's just, I was busy with life stuff, and just couldn't, really drum at that time. I had, like I said, I had my acoustic set in the basement, but it's like, man, it's just so loud, I just couldn't do it. So, I was just busy with other things in my life, raising a family and all that. And so, but yeah, man, it's a method that, if you kind of missed out on the skills when you were younger, it seems like it's twice as hard to try and learn it as an old guy like I am. So,
Totally. I'm right there with you. Like
yeah,
there's things that I see on social media, whatever. And, there's all these. You have so much more exposure now to drummers that you would never have known
yeah,
even existed, and there's all these people that are just like doing their molar or whatever you call it with their
yeah,
both hands, and it just
yeah,
looks like their arms are completely still and their
yeah,
sticks are just going,
yeah.
and it's like, oh, I want to try to learn how to do that. So I get out the pad and I try to match my left hand with my right hand, and then after about 30 seconds it doesn't happen, and I just throw the whole thing.
Yeah, it is crazy. I know. I know. For a while there, I was like, you know what? I bet if I just like the one-handed, like the Buddy Rich one-handed roll, thing. And I don't do traditional grip, but there's all these tutorials online. Hey, here's how you do it. You just kind of start slow and tap like this, and then pretty soon, and this guy's going, with one hand. I'm like, well, I mean, all it is it's a problem of time. It's like you start off slow and just apply like a whole crap load of time, and then by the end of this time period, I'll be doing the same thing. And then of course, after about 3 or 4 weeks, I'm still stuck on the very, very slow part. It's like, this is going to take a lot longer than I think it's going to take. So I don't know if I had that kind of time to invest in it. But you're right. It's like, it's amazing, the stuff that's online, and just the skills that it's like, man, when I was growing up, I grew up, I'm an old guy. So I grew up in the 70s. I was born in 67. And so I had two older brothers, and, it was all, I was influenced greatly by what they were listening to, because I was the youngest in the family, and they had, like, it was all 70s rock stuff, Led Zeppelin, or Aerosmith, or, like ZZ Top, and all those kind of classic hard rock genre of bands. And it's like you could listen to the albums, and you could never you see these drummers in action. Really, back then it was like you had like 4 channels on the television. You know what I mean? It's like you could hear the music everywhere. You could hear it on the radio, you could hear it on the albums and stuff, but it's just like you never really know. I at least as a kid back then, I never really knew exactly how are they doing some of that stuff. You know what I mean? And it's like, YouTube is just a great resource to figure out, just the mechanics of how some of this stuff is actually played. That's what I love about a lot of people's drum cover channels. It's just, oh, that's how that's done, or a different take on how a song will be played. That sounds really good. It's like, that's really cool. But yeah, back then it was like, somebody would be appearing on the TV, and you'd have to like mark the date down and the time, because you didn't have VCR even back then. So it's like, if you missed it, you missed it. Somebody actually playing the drums. It's crazy. It's amazing how far it's come. But that's kind of my where I started playing the drums at age around 10. In school,
Okay.
in the school band. Got rented a snare drum. I don't know. I don't remember. I think I was just always liking the sound of drums. I don't, I'd taken violin lessons. My mom was majored in music, so she played the piano, and she was a singer, like a almost operatic singer, really good singer. So she was into music. And I don't know how I think I just was like, all of us were beating on the pots and pans with this wooden spoons and stuff, and wanting to be the drummer. And so I, started off with snare drum lessons and all the rudiments and the syncopation and all that stuff. And really want to get a drum kit, and I think, my parents were able to resist that for 2 or 3 years. And finally I got they bought me it was like a third hand. It wasn't even a second hand kit. It was like a third hand kit. I mean, this thing it had a big wooden bass drum that wasn't even like a drum set bass drum. It was like I don't know what it was, a marching bass drum or something. It was all wood with like no finish on the wood. And they had made that into the bass drum and kind of makeshift mount with a couple of toms. And I don't even think the thing was a brand name kit. It was an orange sparkle. I don't recall it being like, a Ludwig or a Slingerland or anything. I think it was just a really second, third hand kit. But it was a drum set, and I was psyched, and then eventually they upgraded that kit after a few years to a Tama kit. It was a 7-piece swing star Tama kit, which Tama at that time. This wasn't the best sounding kit. I mean, I was psyched because it was a 7-piece, so it had kind of, the kind of cool look that I wanted to have, the big rock star looking kit, the extra 2 toms over here. And, and then that was what I had up until, I kind of switched over and, got into having a family and all that stuff, and kind of went on hiatus for so many years. And then, and I finally sold that kit when I got my E kit, in 2000, around 2009, I think it was, or something like that. So I know you didn't ask that question, but that was kind of.
No, that's great. That's great. I wanted to ask you if you, if you had your choice, if you won the lottery and you were able to build your own studio, would you continue to use the E kit, or would you go back to an acoustic kit?
I don't know. The E kit is cool to me for my situation. Like I said, I'm in a suburban area. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I would probably go to an acoustic. Because with an acoustic you can still probably trigger E-kit sounds if you really want to do that. I mean, I'm sure that. So I would say the hi-hat thing is probably much more natural on an actual hi-hat. The E-kit, there's just certain things you can't kind of fully recreate all the nuance of a real hi-hat. So that's a big difference. It's ironic to me though, because it's like, a lot of the new music is so, put against the grid and quantized and stuff. And it's like, everybody's griping about, well, the E drums, they don't sound like, natural acoustic drums. And it's just like, by the time you put samples and trigger samples on an acoustic kit and then put it on a quantized grid, it's like, well, you might as well be in it by that point. Am I right? I mean, it's like, you're taking all the, I really like that 70s rock stuff, because it was always, just sounded like it was recorded from the floor. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure that some of them used click tracks and things like that, but I just like, it sounded like, especially like Van Halen, if they had little mistakes in there, Eddie Van Halen said, the mistakes are sometimes your greatest learning experiences, and then they leave them in, and it just makes it sound so much more sort of spontaneous, and they sound like a party band almost, like, because that's what they cut their teeth doing, backyard parties in Pasadena and all that, the stories and stuff. So I think there is a difference, between electronic and acoustic. And it's just ironic to me that they're kind of taking the acoustic and turning it more and more toward an electronic sound. I mean, it's like, should be going the opposite direction, I think. So I don't know. But I think I'd go acoustic.
Cool.
I like looking at, you know, the acoustic drummers on their YouTube channels, and you know, if I had blue sky, I could do it any way I'd want. Yeah, sure, I'd love to go back to acoustic.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you say that. Like, I've had the same observation, but I've never tried to vocalize it. Or you put it perfectly. It's so weird how people on acoustic drums are trying to sort of electrify the end product.
Yeah,
It's totally that's totally what it is. Because if you try to quantize someone like Keith Moon, I mean, those
yeah,
songs would be completely different.
yeah, yeah. It is. It's amazing. Like, you know, that song. I read this somewhere that this song "Honky Tonk Women," you know, by the Stones, starts off, and
Oh
then
yeah. Yep.
if you time out the first like 8 measures, you know, it's at whatever 120 beats per minute, and then if you time out the last 8 measures of the song, it's like 136 beats per minute. I mean, the whole song is just, it's sped up just naturally, you know, because they're just playing, you know, like a group from the floor, you know, like they recorded, you know. So it's interesting. Um, but you know, I was going to say something, and I don't remember what it was now. Anyway, so go ahead.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time when I'm trying
Yeah.
to remember stuff. I'll say, "Oh, I gotta remember that," and then you go off on a tangent, and it's just like, doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, that happens to me quite a bit.
Well, okay, so I know you do a lot of Alex Van Halen. Is he your favorite drummer? Do you have a favorite drummer?
You know what? I think my favorite drummer is probably Neil Peart.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
you know, uh, you know, like I said, where I was in the '70s listening to all that stuff, and then my one second old my brother, who's the second oldest in the family, got a Rush. It was called Rush Archive. It was a 3 album set of their first 3 albums, basically, for Christmas one year. And I just remember him, you know, putting that stuff on, and like the Fly By Night album. I'm like, I mean, at the time, it was like that stuff was, you know, the drummers just weren't really doing that. You know what I mean? You had like, you know, you had like Black Sabbath, you know, and he was playing a lot of the toms and things like that, and you know, and that was kind of innovative and everything, and you know, you had some real cool rock drummers, but I mean, like he was taking it to that sort of prog, you know, like you're saying, the technical proggy, but it was still hard rock stuff, you know, Fly By Night and all those cool tunes, and it's just like, man, he's like applying like rudiments and stuff, you know, to this stuff. And then you know, they'd have like on the album cover, they'd have a list of all the instruments they all played, and he had like, you know, the Mongolian wind chimes and the freaking, you know, he had like all this, you know, the list was like 2 paragraphs long of all the things that Neil Peart played, you know, on that, you know, for Rush, and it just was like the whole thing was presented to be just this, you know, amazing, and it was amazing stuff, you know, and then I was a real Kiss fan in the '70s too, you know, just and then not necessarily, you know, for the skill in the drumming, but just for the whole, you know, and they were like, you know, I was a, you know, here I am, a little snot-nosed suburban kid in the heartland of America, you know what I mean? And it's like they were just kind of the cool thing, and you know, they were kind of underground, you know, when they first broke big, you know, because they weren't on the radio, and so it was kind of like, it was like a, you know, it was like an underground kind of thing. Really liked, you know, listening, and the thing that I learned from listening to those Kiss albums was how different their live versions of their songs were from the studio versions, and it just kind of blew my mind. I'm like, God, it's just amazing how they can take the same song, and you can totally feel it. Just gives it a completely different energy. They would, you know, the tempos would be sped up a little bit, and you could totally tell that they had, you know, kind of worked it out, you know, and so then they were in their groove and in their wheelhouse, and then it just kind of made a real impression on me. The difference, and we also had, this was back when they had 45, so that's how old I am. So we had a record player. We would buy 45s, you know, and one of the 45s we bought was "Smoke on the Water" by Deep Purple, and the 45 was the studio version of "Smoke on the Water," and the flip side of the record was the live version of "Smoke on the
Mm.
Water." So that was kind of cool because you could like put the studio side on and listen to that, and it's very technical, and everything is right. And then you could flip it over and hear the live version of the same song. It was just interesting as a kid. It kind of just blew my mind how much you could take the same song and make it sound just completely, more energetic, and I don't know, it made a real impression on me, I guess, so that was kind of how I got into Rush. And then Neil Peart, he just kind of peered or purred. I'm not sure how to spell it.
Nobody knows.
Just bringing the whole technical side of the drums, to rock music, and I kind of, and then I got into Van Halen. After I was into Rush is when I got into Van Halen, even though they were really big at the same time. That 1984 album came out, and that kind of like, I think I'd been listening to Van Halen, didn't really have any of their albums. I did get the 1984 album, and then it was one of those deals where I kind of went back and started getting their previous albums, from their back catalog after I had the 1984 album, and then got really into it, kind of moving in reverse, you know what I mean? And, yeah. And I think, I guess maybe Alex Van Halen and Neil Peart might be tied, I guess you would say. But really, Neil Peart, I think, was way more influential, of a drummer than Alex Van Halen was. Neil Peart is interesting because he's a double pedal player, but he really doesn't. He never really did a whole lot of that double pedal in the main groove of his songs type thing. He would add little patterns of double pedal, for fills and things like that, or just in spots, it seems like, and then later when the metal and all that came in, was that real chugging beat with the double pedals just kind of rocking the whole thing and driving the whole song. I feel like Neil Peart really wasn't that kind of a double pedal player, even though he was very skilled at it. I think he just kind of mixed it in and did it in interesting patterns and fills and things like that. So, and that was kind of like, I remember my brother would like, there's certain breaks or fills in some of those Rush songs off those albums, and he would just like, he knew where to drop the needle to hear the double kick fill on the song. He'd make a tape of just the breaks in the songs that had the drum fills, and he put them on end to end on a tape. I don't know why he did that, but he thought cool. So he didn't record the whole song. He would just record like all the different ways Neil Peart would do the fill in the same spot, throughout the song. So yeah, he was probably way more influential than Alex Van Halen, who I got into later. But for some reason, I like doing Alex Van Halen covers more than I haven't done a Rush cover.
Huh.
So I guess I think I like Van Halen music maybe a little bit better than Rush music, but drumming wise, I think I like Neil Peart better than Alex Van Halen, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Well, they both have crazy interesting kits.
Yeah.
If you had a chance to play behind one of those kits,
oh man,
one or the other.
Yeah, wow. I love those Alex Van Halen kits, man. I think I'd have to pick one of those, with the 6 bass drums.
Yeah.
The octavans and the friggin', that stuff is just, his kits were, I remember I never had MTV, our family never had MTV, and that was like the big thing, when I was in like high school. So I had a friend, who had MTV. So I'd always go over to his house and we just watch videos. That was like a cool thing back then. And I remember that Jump video, Alex Van Halen had like the Rototoms, and that kit was just like, I don't think he even toured with that kit. It was just kind of set up for the video type of a thing, you know what I mean? But it was a crazy, I just remember seeing that, and my jaw dropped. I'm like, man, look at that! It's so cool. He had all the tape on the snare drum and stuff. Yeah. This guy's like modifying. He knows, I always got the feeling that Alex Van Halen kind of tinkered with the drum sound himself. I don't know if that's the case, but I feel like he had some real ideas when it came to like assembling drums and taping the head and just kind of his sound was so unique, especially his snare sound. I always got the feeling that he kind of modified things on his own, just out of, sort of like Eddie, his brother, did with guitars, or he put a Frankenstrat together, because he just wanted to see if he could do it. You know what I mean? And I think that Alex kind of did a little bit of that with his kits, where he would just put crazy stuff together and see how it looked or sounded. I mean, he had like gas masks and fire extinguishers attached to his bass drums and stuff, like chains and shock absorbers on his bass drums. I mean, it's cool stuff. He had like big speakers on the outsides of the bass drums, those big loudspeaker things. I'm like, obviously it didn't really do anything. It just was for the look. But I mean, it's kind of interesting. He uses his imagination pretty well, I thought. It always was. The presentation was pretty cool with Van Halen.
Yeah, I would just want to sit there just to play his snare, just to hear what it sounds like.
Yeah.
In the room.
Yeah, I wonder how it is in the room, because I mean, it's so unique, and it's like people, I've read articles and stuff, and it is, it's like, say what you want about his drumming, chops and skills and things like that, but I mean, he did come up with an identifiable snare sound that is his signature sound, and there's something to be said for just doing that. I mean, that's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't think snare drums can really sound that unique, but his, when you hear it, that sounds like, an Alex Van Halen snare sound. It's crazy.
Yeah, you mentioned Jeff Holden earlier.
Yeah.
I think he actually tried to do a video where he tried to replicate his sound. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think he got like pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome to see that.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And it's like, I don't know how, how if they came up with that sound sort of by happenstance and then try to replicate it later. But it seems like, he was able to consistently come up with that sound album after album in all these different studios, I'm assuming, and things. And it's just like with different kits, and, obviously you probably use the same snare, but, so if they did do studio tricks, they must have written it down,
Yeah.
the formula for getting that sound. I don't know.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I play on this set only, and from cover to cover, the sound is different.
Yeah, and that's funny.
So yeah, I mean,
That's what I was gonna say before. Is that you're talking about would you rather go acoustic or electronic? And it's like the one thing I really don't know anything about is miking and mixing acoustic drums, and that might weigh into things too, because I mean, with electronic drums and all these new, Superior Drummer sample programs and things like that, it's like it's all based on, traditional studio mixing, filters and techniques and things like that. I don't know how much you wrestle with getting the sound out of your acoustic drums with between the mics, and then mixing the stuff and engineering it and adding the reverb and the all that would be something that might weigh into my decision, because it's like with drums, it is probably, you eliminate the step of the microphones, but you still have the step of, you probably need to add, they're recorded sometimes with a little bit of reverb and things like that, the samples are, but usually you have to go in and kind of tweak that stuff. And, that's not one of my strong suits either. I mean, I'm kind of a hack when it comes to like getting in there, I'm like, what does this compression even do? I mean, I put some more on there until it sounds really bad. I was like, okay, I think I know what that's doing. You know what I mean? It's like you miss stuff with me, but that's what's so great about your channel, because it's like, I don't know, a lot of the channels out there, it's like, how are they getting that sound? I mean, your sound, like, I guess you probably do have what looks like a professional studio there.
I mean, it's a souped up home studio, I would say. Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not like your entry level gear, but it's definitely not, you know, there's probably compressor units that are more expensive than my whole studio. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing though. I mean, that's one thing that I just I'm not real well versed in. Obviously, not with acoustic drums for sure, but there's some channels out there that I just watch and listen to, and just like, how can I how can I get that sound with what, with my drums? And, I'm kind of shooting in the dark. It's like, I just have to go trial and error and try things. I mean, it has, the Superior Drummer is amazing. It has all these, it has all these kits to start with. And then it has just all these different filters. I mean, there's like 6, 7, 8 different kinds of compression, and there's, all these, these knobs that look like the traditional knobs that you turn. And then there's some that are, it's like, just, they got weird names, and it's like, I don't know what any of this stuff is, it's so it's almost overwhelming. I just got to kind of probably keep it simple and just add a couple things that I know what it does to the sound. But I don't have to worry about types of microphone, where to place the mic. You seem to be pretty skilled at being, getting the sound just really pristine and really right on, and that's something I don't know anything about, but I think you probably could do that, get close to that sound with the samples and the mixing and all that. I just don't know. I wouldn't know how to do it. I don't have skills enough to do it. But if an engineer came in, he'd be like, "Yeah, we can do that," and then I'd have drums that sound as good as yours.
Well, I mean, I've been lucky. I did a lot of recording when I was younger, and I think the one thing that I always did was just watch what the pros were doing.
Yeah.
So my wife says it best. Like she's a fashion designer, and there's a lot of she works for a big company, so there's a lot of designers that come underneath her, and they're new and they're a little green behind the ears, and they'll work, at her company for a while, and then they'll try to go and start their own clothing line or whatever. And for my wife, it was always, she never wanted to make mistakes on her dollar. She wanted to make mistakes on a big company's dollar.
Yeah.
So that she didn't have to front any money and whatnot. Because starting your own line is like, you're going to make so many mistakes. 9 times out of 10, you're going to kill your business before it even,
wow.
starts going. So for me, I feel like it's the same way. I was lucky enough to be in a bunch of bands that did a lot of recording, and I was able to just pick up things here and there. So now I'm doing my own YouTube channel, and I kind of apply all of that. I know what's cheap and sounds cheap, and I know what's cheap but sounds good. That kind of whole thing, just by the experience that I've gotten from being, lucky enough to be born in LA, and have a pro uncle kind of show me the ropes as well, and then just jump right into the fire.
That's
And
awesome, dude. That's great.
yeah, I'm completely blessed. I'm blessed to have been, where I've been, and be able to set it up. And yeah, it's almost second nature to me. So, when I talk to people like you and other drummers, and it's almost like I realize how lucky I am.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, if I had to, if I wasn't in that position and I had to learn all this stuff by myself, there's no way I would do it. It would be way too much work.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of cool. Like I said, it's like these worldwide studios. The technology is available on my laptop here in my, down in my basement. But it's like the other side of the coin is, I don't know what any of this stuff does, man. I'm gonna start turning some knobs and see what happens to the sound. It's like, that's the only way I can tell what I'm doing, man. I just have to, like, yeah. But I mean, there's enough. I mean, I haven't spent the time, on YouTube, but I'm sure there's enough, tutorials on how to, engineer sound and all that. But that and the editing too. It's like, I guess you do video editing, or at least sounds like you do graphic design, video editing, graphics and motion graphics and things like that. And it's like, I don't know a lot about that. I know a little bit, to cut these videos together, but it's like, man, it's like when you're doing a YouTube channel, you got to wear a lot of hats. You're doing the editing, you're doing the sound mixing, the mastering. So you could definitely got a leg up at being in the industry and knowing the ins and outs of some of that stuff, because it's like, geez. it's daunting, you know, if you don't know anything. And there's enough free stuff to where, like you said, you can get cheap stuff that still looks good, or you know, cheap stuff that still sounds good, and you know, shortcuts to kind of make it. But man, it's like, you know, the quality of the stuff you're doing, and some of the other guys are doing, it's just like, man, you know, it's just going to be a learning curve, I guess. You know, even the video editing, you know, I just want to play the drums, you know. I want to improve my drum skills, you know what I mean? But it's like, you got to spend the time, you know. It's so time consuming when you have a lot of takes, and you know, you got to cut stuff together and edit, and then get the sound, you know, mixed. And it always sounds great when you're just playing along to it, and then you start mixing it together. It's like, oh man, this, you know, tough. I think now I gotta record it again or something. I mean, you know how it is. So yeah, it's interesting. The YouTube channel thing is interesting in that you kind of have to wear those other hats.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Are there other YouTubers out there that you go to frequently to, you know, just to either kill time or take notes or
I
try
think
to?
I think it's everybody. I mean, I'm subscribed to a whole ton of different people. So I mean, you know, like, you know, Cooper Drummer or someone like that. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's a lot of, you know, but a lot of flack probably from people or whatever. But I mean, there's some real talent there. I mean, you know, the guy's, you know, he's a good drummer, and he's got showmanship and stuff like that. So I mean, I'll go to any channel. You know, I don't. I think that's the fun thing about, like I said, about the YouTube thing, is there's, you know, entry level and then all skill levels in between. But I think, you know, like your channel, I would say, you know, Trey B, if you've been to his,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, just like, you can tell that guy has been, you know, in a band, and, you know, has done this professionally, you know what I mean? And it's like, the sound quality, I mean, it's so top notch, you know. And so I would say his channel, your channel. I'm gonna forget a lot of the other, you know. I mean, you know, it was, you know, Beats by Jay, and you know, Fournier,
Mhm.
Mike Fournier, just all the I think all the channels that everybody goes to probably. And then I have some favorites of, you know, just people that I like to connect to that are like on the other side of the globe and things like that, just because I think it's cool to kind of connect to other like-minded people that are in a completely different part of the world, you know. And
Yeah.
so there's a few different things that are cool about the YouTube drum community. But as far as sound quality goes, yeah, those are the ones that I kind of, you know, try and emulate or get close to.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. And I mean,
So I mean, I'm just saying, you know, I don't really need to. I don't need to go to any other channel besides yours, you know, if I want.
ah,
Seriously though, you know, I mean, it's like people. That's why I was saying, you know, you can interview me, but it's like I don't have the background. You got all the interesting stories and the experience, and it's like, you know, that's half of it. You know, it's just the experience to know how to do that stuff, what you're doing. You know, that's really cool stuff. It's great that guys like you share that, you know, and put it out on a YouTube channel. You know, it's right at your fingertips. It's like you can go and look at 100 different drum covers, you know, if you want. And it's just great. You know, it's so different than, like I said, when I was growing up, where it's like you could never get that kind of exposure to any drumming, you know, when I was young. So I love it, man.
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If I had to rate myself as a drummer, it's probably right in the middle. You know, there's so many people that are, and you know, it's hard to rate a drummer. It's hard to rate yourself. There's certain things that some drummers will be better at you at, and the same drummer will be not as good as what you do. And so there's different levels of talent, not only the whole drum community, but within one drummer or one compared to one. So, you know, when uh when I put myself out there, I'm basically opening the book and saying, this is how I am. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not if at least 50%, probably a lot more. It's just me being at the right place at the right time, being born in the right spot, a lot of those things that I can't even control. Like
Yeah.
just for me, the first time I sat behind a drum set, I could play a beat. Most people aren't like that. They got to work
Wow.
to even get to that level.
Yeah.
So I was born with sort of like a kind of like a step up, but then it's that whole story where you hear hard work outweighs talent. In the race, hard work is going to win every
Yeah.
time.
Right.
And for me, I didn't necessarily ever really work hard, and there wasn't anyone to actually like. There wasn't anyone whipping me to do the
Uh-huh.
hard work.
Yeah.
So
Driving.
I kind of plateaued, and I'm the first to admit it. I'm decent, but I could have been with hard work. I could have been way better.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
I just kind of put myself out there and be like, anyone can drum at
Yeah.
any level. It just depends on what work you put into it, how much you put yourself out there. Because for me, like just having a natural talent, like I said, I jumped into the fray, and
Yeah.
there was tons of bands back in the '90s in LA, and I was never ever not in a band. So you know, um, and there was a lot of other drummers that we would play gigs with, all different talent levels and whatnot, and it didn't matter. Um, Really, no one had to be like a Neil Peart or a Danny Carey or all these top names. As long as you could play to the music, that's all that really mattered. So as long as you weren't a train wreck, you could get a gig.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really doesn't matter your talent. It's all about the passion and if you're having fun. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. I know I could be way better, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
having fun, and I just like to put those things out there and whatnot. So for me, that's my whole thing is if you have the passion and you want to have fun and you have fun doing it, by all means, like
Yeah.
that's the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure. And no, I feel the same way. I guess naturally it's like, when you have, I think drummers, like to kind of like the attention, or you know what I mean? If you're in a band, it's like you sort of by nature are going to have a little bit of an ego, or, compare yourself to the next guy or this kind of thing. And it's just like, I always try and just kind of fight against that. And I guess, that's what drives you to get better, be better and better, like you're saying. But, it also can be kind of a negative thing. It's like, there's something to be said for just kind of knowing what your wheelhouse is, what you're good at, and then having fun doing that. And I'm the same way as you, where it's like I like to figure out if I can play these tunes, then put it out there, and see everybody can kind of hopefully learn some things from it. It's like I didn't know that's how that was played, or I didn't realize that that's going on in that song. Sometimes when you see these drum covers, it's like, oh yeah, I guess that is how that part goes. You know what I mean? It's always like in your head, you always thought it was a little bit different or something, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. I think it's a learning experience. Seeing everybody. It can teach people. It doesn't have to be like a tutorial type thing. It can just be someone playing that song. It's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you misheard '80s songs lyrics, and then 20 years later you figure it out what they're really saying. You're like, oh yeah, that's what they were saying.
It's amazing too, because there's gonna be some '80s song, like you said, from the '80s. It's like, what was the song the other day? Me and my wife were listening to, and it's like, I never knew what she said. Oh, it was it was the Cyndi Lauper song. Girls just want to have fun. There's that one lyric where she's like, "When the working day is done, girls just want." I never knew what she was saying there. I'm like, and then and it comes to I find out that neither did my wife. She's like, I've heard this song probably a million times. I never knew. She's saying when the working. I had to look up the lyrics. One of the best things about the internet is you can look up lyrics online.
Yeah.
You know, I never knew what she was saying there. I'm like, what? When the working day is, or whatever. I'm like, I thought she was saying like, "What in the world does they expect?" I'm like, what's she saying right there?" It's amazing. But that is one of the best things too about the internet, other than seeing a bunch of drum covers, is figuring out what lyrics the songs are.
Yeah,
Some of
yeah.
those lyrics I don't know how accurate they are that are on the internet.
That's true too.
But yeah,
Yeah, I've I've listened to a lot of Fleetwood Mac with the lyrics going, and man, I had no idea half of the things that what's her name, Stevie Nicks was singing.
It's funny, man. It's yeah, it's it's a great resource to figure out. Finally, it's like sometimes I'll look up the lyrics and they're like, oh, that's what they really say there. And then like a month will go by and that song will come back on the radio, and then I'll have forgotten again what they. Oh, I'm hearing it sung the wrong way, and I can't remember what the actual words are again. I gotta go back to
Yeah.
the internet and find out what the lyrics are now.
Yeah, it's that muscle memory, right? That's why I
Yeah,
can never get that left hand the way I
yeah.
want it to.
Yeah, I mean, any of those Buddy Rich videos too. I mean, talk about inspirations. It's like you're not my genre of music, obviously, but man, golly, it's like how that guy, he's like wearing like a three-piece suit.
Yeah.
He's got like one rag tom, a floor tom, and it's yeah, he's
Well, I mean, he's mythological, right? Because
yeah,
there was a rumor. I don't know if it's ever been confirmed or debunked or whatnot, but I remember hearing, even I think from my uncle, that people would say that he had extra like ligaments or tendons in his wrists or something like
makes
that.
you wonder. It makes you. I
But
mean,
you gotta make stuff up like that just to make you feel better. Like,
yeah.
oh, I can't do that stuff. That guy's got to have extra ligaments.
That's the extra ligament coming into play. I knew it.
Yeah.
That's all the reason right there to just hang it up. I'm not even going to try anymore.
Yep.
That does it for me.
Yeah, I mean Neil Peart, he's got to have extra brain cells to control his limbs. I'm not even gonna try doing it because I don't have the same
Yeah,
brain.
it's amazing because I feel like he was so influential. I feel like, and then it's like the drummers that came in the era after Rush really was that big thing. Probably could play a lot of the Neil Peart stuff. And make it easily. You know what I mean? It seems like the skill level just went up by leaps and bounds once he kind of introduced those ideas into the music. It's sort of like Eddie Van Halen on guitar. It's like
Yeah.
just was one of those moments in time where it's just like people just weren't playing the drums. I mean, what kind of blows my mind is I read somewhere that Neil Peart was um, influenced by Keith Moon, and I'm like thinking, wow, that kind of blows my mind. I'm like, Neil Peart doesn't seem like he's that kind of a Keith Moon, you think it's just kind of one of those wild and crazy, he was almost like Animal from the Muppets, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And very probably very difficult and technically to play, but just your vision of that kind of music, um, doesn't jive with the prog rock kind of feel of the Neil Peart stuff. But it's amazing that I guess he really it's amazing how you can kind of take an influence and just create your own style from it just by trying to imitate the influence that you are listening to. So, that, and then, like John Bonham, I didn't mention him, but obviously he, like you said, is just one of those drummers that he's very technically sound, but he did a lot of that stuff with the hi-hat, where he'd have that hi-hat going on some of his solos. And, that's stuff that I look at and go, man, that's so cool. I want to try and learn how to do that. So a lot of my videos have that sort of hi hat going, while I'm playing, just because I feel like, the left foot on the hi hat was a thing in the 70s. I feel like, even on Kiss albums, when he's doing fills and things like that, he's ticking that hi hat on eighth notes or whatever. And then once the double pedal thing came in, I feel like the eighth notes on the hi-hat foot just kind of went away, and obviously because you're doing much more complicated and interesting stuff with the two kick pedals. But I was always interested in, how that sounded, like even on like Bob Seger, his live albums, Live Bullet or whatever it was called. I don't know the drummer's name for the Silver Bullet Band, but I mean, it was the same thing. You'd hear those live songs on the radio, and you just hear that hi hat going, even while he's doing fills and all kinds of cool stuff with his hands. That he's keeping time with the hi hat foot. For some reason, that's kind of always interested me, because I was not really ever able to do that. And so it's like, that's one of those things where I just want to try and get that type of playing in my comfort zone. That would be one of the things that I challenge myself with, so.
That's really cool. That's awesome. I don't think I'm as, I guess, self-aware as you are to actually go and figure out what I need to do, what I do good, what I need to work on, and all that kind of
Well, that's
stuff.
because your left foot doesn't suck. Mine does.
Oh, my left foot's not very good either. So my left hand is probably the worst. I would say right
Yeah.
hand good, right hand good, right foot good,
Yeah.
left foot meh,
Yeah.
left hand just horrible. So
It's funny.
I hide it really well.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, when I got to do the I mean, and that was the interesting thing about some of the Alex Van Halen parts is like, now I'm hitting my left hand with my right foot, and then I'm hitting my right hand with my left foot on this, these patterns are just like, okay, I got to slow this back down to 60 beats a minute and start, working from square one.
And that's
You
hard
know?
too because something that's played at 120 sounds completely different
It
at
is.
60.
It is amazing, and that's weird to me too. Is like somehow, it's like you can play if your hand is like over here on the right cymbal, you know what I mean? So you're doing all kinds of cool stuff with your like feet, and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm bringing that over to the hi-hat. And then it's like somehow between being over here on the ride and here on the hi-hat, it's like, well, now my feet don't work. It's like, what the crap is this all? Like, is it really that different? I mean, I just threw my balance off just enough to where I can't do the same tool. It's easier to do when I'm over here than it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, I don't know. I thought it was old guy stuff. Oh,
Yeah, no, I think it's so weird. I can probably talk about drum stuff like this, the little intricacy parts, the minutia of the drums where yeah,
yeah,
it's set up in a way that's so weird where you're playing the hi-hats like crossed with your hand and then you're
yeah,
playing the ride open and it's the same song. You've got to stick to basically the same patterns,
yeah.
but you're playing it in different positions, and somehow it's almost like crossing into a parallel universe, and it's like your brain's got to do like magic.
I don't understand it. It's like I know how to. Why is it? Why can I play this only when I'm on the ride cymbal? I need to play the same pattern now on the hi hat, and it's like my body, mostly my left foot or whatever, just won't cooperate. I'm like, really? The balance is that different or something now? Like, it's kind of ticked me off.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, you're not the only one.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. It's like I chalk a lot of this stuff up to that's just my own weirdness. I just like, but it can be done. It's like that's the beauty of all the drumming community on YouTube. It's like you can kind of see things that I don't know can be done, and you go out there and it's like, yeah, it can be done because that guy's doing it or that girl's doing it or whatever. So it's great learning. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and the best part is there's no one right way. Like you were mentioning Trey B, and I go to his channel all the time. His stuff is top notch. Everything from A to Z.
Yeah,
His channel is like
really good stuff.
one of the like probably top three, I would say, out of
Yeah,
all the YouTube drummers. So, and I watch him play, and he's got his hi-hats way high, his
yeah,
snare way low, his toms are completely flat,
yeah,
and he I don't even think he's got the last two fingers on his sticks. He holds them so low,
yeah,
and he's just banging away. And it's just like, man, if I tried to play like that and set up my set like that, I would sound like probably like a toddler.
yeah. It's amazing, and it's like, you know, the presentation, like you said, you don't really realize what your movements look like until you kind of video yourself and then you play it back. It's like, dang man, that's freaking lame. It might sound all right, but it's like, this is like, I don't know. You're either making a goofy face or it's just like this. Just, but you're right. His stuff is like, just the motions and everything. I mean, the video editing and the whole thing, man. It's just completely inspiring, and it's always fun to go back and watch his stuff and just get inspired. You know, it's amazing to just see it and take it in, and you know, it's like, yeah, there's whole other levels out there. You know, you just got to keep trying. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It's a testament to he's got his own style.
Yeah,
I mean, if you we want graphic designers, we want to talk about branding. I mean, he's got his own brand like to a T. Now, I
yeah,
don't know if it came natural to him or if he worked on it for a long time, but he really does have his own sound and look.
yeah,
You know, if you see him, you know it's him. If you hear
yeah,
him, you know it's him. And it's just like he's definitely one of the guys that I like always try
yeah.
to look to um just because he's the one of the benchmarks, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. You know, that was the other thing that, you know, in sort of going back to when I was, you know, learning the drums, and, you know, I kind of got into the 70s rock, and then, you know, it was like the 80s came along, and then, you know, that like that British invasion of the 80s of like, you know, that sort of synth pop, you know, Duran Duran and Tears for Fears and all this. And it's just like, man, at that age, you know, I'm in like high school, and it's just like, man, you know, I think drums are going away forever. I'm like, you know, so these songs sound like they're hitting a key on a Casio keyboard, and, you know, that's the drum beat for the whole song. Although, you know, and then the videos for these songs, they always had a guy on the drums. I'm like saying, it was a confusing time because, you know, again, information wasn't as readily available, you know what I mean? And it's like, obviously they were sampling or whatever, and then just for the video they would set up some drums, and it's like, but I mean, these bands would tour and stuff, so I don't know if they were using backing tracks or what, but I mean, when the hair metal came in, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air in that here's, you know, actual guitars and drums, you know, two guitars, drums, and maybe three guitars and a singer. You know, as you know, as weird and cheesy as glam got, it was just, in my mind, it was like, gosh, it's just good to know that there's, you know, still a real drum kit back there, you know what I mean, that is, you know, popular music. Because, you know, for a while there, it seemed like, you know, this is going to turn into, I better start learning how to play the keyboard or something, you know. hit, hit the buttons and, you know, make the, you know, the synthy, you know, synthy pop music, you know, which is great music. I'm not knocking the music. I love the 80s music because it, you know, brings me back to my, you know, school days and stuff like that. But yeah, as a drummer, it was sort of like, man, where's this going? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and Simmons drums and everything, and it's just like, I don't know, man. It's kind of ironic that I play the E drums now, but I mean, back then it was like, it was those, you know, those disco whatever drum sounds, like the pew, you know, like, it's kind of rough. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm down with that.
Yeah, I remember watching an NXS video, and the drummer, he had those like drum pads that were octagons, and then
Yeah,
a really small bass drum pad, so you could see
yeah,
like its whole like everything. And I thought it was cool looking, but at the same time, it was just like, yeah, I don't know, like
yeah,
it might be cool looking, but it's not for me.
yeah, yeah. And you know, I didn't know anything about um, you know, samples or anything like that. But I mean, it's like, I'm sure, you know, the hair metal stuff was just probably sampled like crazy, obviously, or I don't, you know, I'm assuming. Um, but it was just nice that, you know, it's like, oh, we finally have some, you know, nice arena rock drummers, you know, back in the mainstream, more or less, you know what I mean? So that, you know, there's a reason for being a drummer again. You don't have to, you know,
Yeah.
cheese out to the 80s stuff, you know. So that was interesting. So I liked all the, you know, all the hair bands versus the kind of, you know, pop stuff in the 80s, you know. And then the 90s, that was when I got married and, you know, had a family and all that, and that's kind of where my musical journey kind of took a, you know, got off the rails a little bit, and I kind of, that's where I had like big blind spots, and that's probably when you were gigging out in LA, I guess, at that time. Huh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it goes back to me being just like at the right place at the right time.
So what were you playing? Were you playing punk stuff, or were you
I started off playing punk stuff just because I was in the jazz band, and the guitar player in that jazz band had a punk band, and he needed a drummer, so I started playing with him, and that punk band actually got locally pretty big, and we were playing with a lot of pretty popular punk bands, and the big punk label Epitaph Records out in LA. He used to work for that record label, so we would get on a bunch of Epitaph Records shows and whatnot. And so yeah, for a good while I was playing punk, and then you kind of grow out of it, and at the same time, a lot of the grunge and post grunge bands were starting to come out. You had bands like Tool and Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots, Rage Against the Machine. All that music was just so huge,
Yeah.
and it kind of drew me away from punk, and I kind of wanted to get more into the rock scene. So then I started playing more in rock bands and whatnot, but it was all just like real, and the whole grunge thing was raw, right? Like you had drummers that didn't want to use hardly any effects on their drums and whatnot. So it was almost like a drum revival. All the drummers in those bands were amazing too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just having those influences again was just being at the right place at the right time. It's almost like being born in the 60s again, where you had, all these great drummers coming out. Um, and it was kind of like a cycle. And I'm hoping that cycle happens again, because now everything's like electrified.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe the next decade someone will be like, I'm done with all this electric stuff. Let's go back to raw acoustic instruments, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll have some cool bands come.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. See, so that's interesting because you talk about all that that sort of grunge and then all that kind of rock stuff. Really, kind of went counter to the hair metal stuff that I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Where it was like they kind of stripped it down. So I do think it goes in cycles. You know what I mean? Where it's that real polished and kind of overproduced sound, and they mined that out with the hair bands. You know what I mean? It was like there was 1,000 clone hair bands, and then pretty soon it's like grunge and all that came in and just kind of swept all that stuff out, and then the drums just went the opposite way, which is great. Back to acoustic, back to raw, stripped down. um so I kind of missed all that as far as drumming goes. I mean, obviously I was aware of the music and everything, but I wasn't even playing the drums at that time. So that's interesting story. Being in LA at that time had to be a pretty trippy.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool. I think we my rock band played. We opened up for a Perfect Circle's very first show at the
Wow.
Troubadour, which is like this tiny place, like off the beaten path in Hollywood, and nobody even knew really who they were, or what they were all about. And we're playing, and all of a sudden you see Maynard James Keenan, the singer from Tool, walking in, and you're like, oh, I know that guy. And
Wow.
then later on they start playing, and it's like this whole new band and this whole new sound, and we're like up in the top just watching the rest of the show, and we're just like, oh wow, we just opened up for this new awesome band. And then they blew up and became this really big band, and it's like, yeah, it's crazy how uh you don't really get that anywhere, like in any other part of the world, really. In LA, it's like
Yeah.
happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing I was going to mention was that when the hair bands came in, um it was really that sort of showmanship type drumming that really also kind of just dropped my jaw. I mean, the Tommy Lee, the stick twirls and all that, and it's just like, oh man, that stuff is, the stuff he's playing isn't really that difficult or whatever. It's pretty sort of basic, rock and roll stuff, but you see it, and it's like the way he presented that stuff visually, it was just like, man, and then that opened up the floodgates for that type of drumming. You know what I mean? And I think that was another moment where it was just like, oh yeah, man, that's really cool. And then everybody wanted to do that, with the stick tricks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Not that that's good for drumming, but I think there is something to be said for, yeah, people, people are impressed with that type of stuff, and that's kind of how it started. It's interesting, and then by the time you were out there in LA, it was back to just, rocking out on the drums, and all that showy stuff was off the table again, so it definitely goes in
Yeah.
cycles, it seems like,
Yeah, yeah, it's so crazy to think about because, yeah, bands like Motley Crue and whatever, they're party, they're all about the show.
Yeah,
And then when a band like Tool comes around, I mean, they're like just so serious. Danny Carey is so serious about the
yeah,
drums. He's got like all these different theories about him and whatnot, and just to he's like the antithesis of show.
yeah,
You watch him play, and he's very he's economical with his movements. He's got a straight face and
yeah,
whatnot. And I love both. I can
yeah,
watch both and
yeah,
everything in between.
yeah,
Uh, to me, it's just wasted energy to be married to one side and not like another side. It's all great.
yeah. It's all great. It's just it's like you said, the field drummers versus like the real technical and sort of prog drummers. There's definitely so many different nuances to the drumming craft. It's always interesting to me, and it's fun to like all of it because it's like, I think, like I said, it's I don't look at it as like, like I gotta learn that skill, or I gotta be better than this guy, or any of that stuff. It's just fun to see other people's skills and things they bring to the drums, and it's like it's interesting to me how these points in time in music, kind of you can kind of see where this was the first example of this, and it kind of changed everything moving forward, and then it morphed into something else. It is interesting, like you said. I think that at some point, they'll get back to just live, recording raw live stuff. It'll happen. It's just when, and timing has to be right, I guess.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, so many people follow the trend. I think somebody has got to be influential enough to say, look, I'm going to do it this way and it's going to be great. And then other people will follow.
yeah.
But for me, it's like, I look at a guy like, I don't know if you are subscribed to Steve Osborne, but he's one of those stick flipping guys.
Okay.
And the same reason why I go to your channel, I go to his channel because he just makes it look so fun and he's flipping those sticks around and he's staying super solid on the drums and it's just like
Yeah.
there's no way I could do that.
Yeah.
But
And
I appreciate it and he looks like he's having so much fun and it's just awesome to watch.
yeah, it's so inspiring. That's what I usually just comment and say, man, dude, this is like totally inspiring stuff. It's fun to see other people, go out there, and, it's like, I'm not even going to try that, but it's very cool. Hats off, that's all you can say. It's really cool. So it's fun I'll have to check that guy out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Steve Osborne. He's a cool guy too. Really,
Yeah.
really down to earth. Very I did an interview with him and yeah, he's one of the nicest guys.
Cool. I'll check it out.
Cool, man. Well, is there anything that you've got planned? I know you probably have a couple of songs that you're working on right now, right?
Of course. I already told you my method, man. There's long-term stuff that I'm, still I gotta do daily drills to try and get my left foot and but yeah, I think I've probably got 10 songs that I would like to cover, you know what I mean? I think everyone has a list in their head of things they want to do. So it's just like if I start getting too hung up on, the next song that is like way out of my comfort zone, like I said, then I just kind of skip ahead to the next song after that. And, hopefully it's a little bit easier, and then, get that one done while I'm working on the other one that won't be done for another few years or however long. No,
Well, we're in the beginning of November, which means we have roughly 2 months left of the year.
yeah.
How many covers do you think you'll come out with before 2022?
Boy, I don't know. That's a good question. Now you're putting the pressure on me.
Yeah.
My monetization thing, enough pressure. Now here we go. Gee whiz.
I just want to know because I kind of need my Mike Conway fix.
Is that what it is? Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully two or three. I get stuck on stuff, and then it's like, and then I kind of, just put everything else on hold while I'm trying to work through certain things that are just unique to me, being, in limited skill set. So, but hopefully two or three, I in the back of my head, it's like, I know, most people are like, yeah, I just put out YouTube stuff that I like to do and everything. But I do have a little bit of that kind of perfectionist thing. You know what I mean? It's like, if it's not quite there, it's like, it doesn't sound great, I don't know. I get real worried about that. You know what I mean? So I probably to a fault. So it's like, I don't know. I really like to have something that I know I can just really play and play right and well and comfortably. That's just the way I am, unfortunately.
No, that's good. I mean, I thought you were gonna say maybe one or two. With the holidays, I know you're a
Probably one or
family man.
maybe if I'm really daring, two or three, but I don't know, I just don't want. I guess it's like, well, what's it doing for anybody if I'm just playing something that I know I can play and isn't really that challenging to play? It's like, well, I don't know. It's, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I haven't really learned something new for this one, so it's like, it's probably not going to be that interesting for people. You know what I mean? But it probably would be, but it's just in my mind, that's how I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same way. I'm like, I'll sit and I'll record a song and I'll go through the editing process and I'll be like, is this even interesting? Am I even
Yeah.
contributing anything to this community? And I'm like, I don't care. I'll put it up anyway.
Yeah, that's what I need to do. I just need to go. I just like, just do like you do, and I'll just cover this. I'll film it. I'll cover it. And then edit it together and have some fun. I just, for some reason, I get stuck on stuff, and it's mostly little details that only I would probably notice anyway, and that always hinders me. I need to learn from the greats like you. You just put it out there. You know what I mean? Seriously. Yeah, I have been doing it long enough, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, how when did you? I know you said you started playing again in 2010, but when did you actually make
I
your
think
channel?
first video was, I think my channel got started in 2015, I think.
15. I mean, you've been doing it longer than me.
Yeah, I know. That's how pathetic it is. I just can't
Well, how many
I'm
how many
trying to tell you.
videos
Come
do
on.
you how many videos do you have up on your channel? They're not that many, right?
Oh no, 20 maybe.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you people are amazing that can put one out you like every week, right?
Try
every
to. Yeah,
every
I try to.
Tuesday, whatever. Yeah. I mean, man, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that. I'm just, I'm not skilled enough, I guess. I don't know.
I
It's
just know a lot of easy songs.
well, your songs are always, I don't know what you mean by easy, but I mean the way that you do them and the way they come out, it just seems like it's completely, you know what I mean? It's like, it's top level stuff. You know what I mean? The presentation, everything, the editing, looks like you spend a lot of time on it. I don't know, maybe that stuff comes easy to you, but man, it's like, wow. You know,
It took a
you,
while. It took like a
yeah,
good 2 or 3 years to really dial in the sound. It took a while for me to really find the look also.
yeah,
Now I feel like I'm at a spot where I've got like a routine, so I can just bang them out. But
yeah,
before, yeah, it was a challenge.
yeah. Yeah, that's the thing too. I'm kind of changing the look, and it's like I started out, I was just like filming, you know, with my phone or whatever, and just kind of like, yeah, I just want to get this out there. Um, and then I start getting lighting and changing things around, and then you start and then trying to plus it up a little bit here and there, and it's just like, so that's been a process too. And it's like, once I get all that stuff squared away, or to where I'm completely happy with it, I get into more of a groove like you're in, where I can just kind of start the process start to finish a lot quicker than it is now, where I'm still tweaking stuff and messing with all those other things and trying different stuff, et cetera, et cetera. you know.
Yeah, I mean, I look at a guy like I'm sure you're familiar with Earl Bennett.
Yeah, and that guy's unreal. He does like every day. I'm like, every morning. Here comes
Every
another.
day, and not only that, he's got a different setup. He
I
sets them
know.
up and tears them down different, and it's like,
He's
how in
going.
the world?
He's got like a green screen thing going on some of them. I'm like, what are we doing here? I mean, yeah, like, man, oh man, now I got to go get a green screen. you know,
Totally, yeah,
no, he's
yeah,
amazing though. And it's like, man, if I was that good of a drummer, to where I could just knock out some covers that quick, yeah, I would definitely probably do it. But man, I just like, I start, tripping over myself, or you get you get nervous when the cameras go on, and then it's like, oh man, it's just, for me, it's like, I don't know, it's a little more difficult process than that. That's for sure.
yeah. He bangs them out. He's
Like,
definitely been around the block probably 100, 200 times.
yeah, I don't even know how many videos you think he has on his channel. I mean, he's got, I mean, thousands. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah, he's probably got more videos in a month than I do my whole channel. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it is crazy, unreal, man.
Yeah, it's just a testament to YouTube, just all
Yeah.
the different personalities, all the different styles, it's amazing how uh diverse the drum community is.
Yeah, yeah. So you actually made an album, right? Or more than.
Yeah, so I that was another thing when I was playing in bands and whatnot, I would just key in on everything, what the singer was doing, what the guitar players were doing, what the engineers were doing, even what the what do you call them? Where man, what I'm having a brain fart. My roadies, well, even what like I was at a point where our band had roadies. I would even watch them to see what they would do, just soaking it all in. So yeah,
Yeah,
I basically got free guitar lessons when I was in bands, so that's how I pretty much learned how to play guitar. And um, I've been singing for a lot longer than I've been playing any other instrument. So um, yeah, I just decided one day that I didn't like what I was hearing on the radio. I didn't like what I was playing in bands. And I was just gonna write my own songs. So I over 20 years or so, I've written maybe 30 or 40 songs or whatnot. And I was like, oh, my firstborn or my first kid is coming. Probably gonna have to kiss music goodbye for a while. I think I'm gonna just re-record everything, put it out there, and see what happens. And yeah, I got a bunch of guys to put drum tracks down, and a bunch of my old friends to put guitar tracks down and whatnot. And yeah, it's a pretty cool album. I'm proud of it. It's not the greatest music or anything, but
it's awesome.
um, yeah, it's all again, it's all about having fun.
Yeah, it's just saying you were able to do that is really cool, man. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, and like you being a dad, it's all for the kids. Like this YouTube channel I started because I wanted to kind of chronicle uh my musical career or whatnot, and just so something that my kids and my grandkids can look back on and oh how like I want to know more about great grandpa or whatever.
Yeah,
Just go to YouTube. You
yeah.
know, I tell everybody, I wish my great grandparents had a YouTube so I can go back and learn more about them.
I know,
So
it's
to
amazing.
have YouTube, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's unbelievable, man. It is. It's crazy. It's just. It's an amazing thing. So I love it. You know. But I'll
Well,
try to do more videos because you insist on
yeah, as a fan, I'm requesting more Mike Conway videos.
it. Right. Right. Right.
And I had an idea too when you were talking about your process. it would be actually really cool. I'm gonna do a request. Hopefully, I request that you maybe do like a behind the scenes where you get to that fill and you keep the camera rolling and until you get it right. I would love to see something like that.
It's so awful, dude. Man, you're getting closer, man. Here it comes. Oh man, you psych yourself out of it. I mean, yeah, you psych yourself out of it. But, man,
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where the anticipation is probably just as good,
yeah,
right? Like I
yeah.
would love to watch your face when that, you know, 2 to 5 measures before that fill comes in, just to see what your face looks
It's just brutal stuff, man. I'm sure that's one of those ones where I'm not putting that out there, man.
like.
Oh, brother.
That's
Yeah,
good TV though.
yeah, it is. I should probably chronicle like just starting, how slow, like the whole process. You know what I mean? Do like a time lapse.
Yes,
Just
yes.
set the camera when I'm first starting to learn the fill or whatever, or the pattern, and then finally when you get it to where it's up to speed and sounds good and smooth out and everything, and then just make a video of that that's only maybe a minute long, but you can kind of see the progress over the course of however many years it takes me.
Well, I mean, I would definitely watch that for sure.
Well, all right. I'll get started on that.
And it'll be interesting because you'll see the first footage is probably in 1080 and then year 20 it'll be in
Yeah,
10K.
yeah, it'll be 10K, and yeah, it's true, very true. True, yeah,
Well, man, this was awesome. You you were afraid that you wouldn't have enough interesting content. I thought I thought this was an interesting, amazing, entertaining, funny conversation. I hope you had fun too.
oh, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, yeah. I'm just a hobbyist, hack drummer. It's like look at guys like you, and then your experiences and everything. It's like, man, no, I can't relate to any of that. I gigged briefly when I was in high school, and then after I got out of college, and that was it. So it's like, I haven't even really played. I definitely haven't played, live mic'd music, like mic'd drums live. It's always the bands I was in was always just the electric guitars and just me on the drums. So, um, I hope it was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it was totally awesome. I hope people that are out there, um, when they go to your channel, they see exactly what we talked about here, and that's the happiest thing about this interview is when I go to your channel, I see one thing, and then when I hear you talk about your processes and everything that goes into your videos, it puts everything into context. And that's why I love doing these interviews is because, you only get a certain amount of exposure on someone's YouTube channel. But when you can actually talk about your process and what you're thinking and how, like, the whole thing, it brings a whole new appreciation to what goes into your videos and all the
Yeah.
work and all the fun that you're having and why why you have this smile on your face and why it's so infectious and whatnot. So I hope that anyone that watches this can apply that to your videos because they really are a treat. I really do appreciate every video that you do. It brings it makes my day a little bit brighter.
That's awesome, dude. I really appreciate that, man. And I would say the same with your channel and your videos. I always love when you come out with the new stuff. And anytime anyone goes to your channel, you're going to be seeing something that is like professional quality, and that's just awesome. I mean, it's always nice to know that you're just going to see something that is that good, and that's and you know how to sing, you know how to play guitar. It's like, gee whiz, dude. Oh,
Well, I mean, I know I try to keep it really humble because I know there there's always someone who's bigger, stronger, faster, smarter. So I
yeah,
just kind of I know I'm blessed to have what I have,
yeah,
and I just want to make sure that my great grandchildren know how cool I was.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, they will know, that's for sure. So, keep doing what you do. And I really appreciate you reaching out and doing this, and I wish I had more interesting stories to share.
Well, I think they'll become even more interesting, and we might even actually have to do another one in the future when you
Mhm.
put out more content. Hopefully, you'll put
Yeah.
out that time lapse, and we'll be able to talk about that too.
Yeah. I'll get started on that because there's plenty of material there, believe me. That one hand
Awesome.
roll, man, I'm still working on it.
Yeah. Oh, that one that'll never get done.
It might be 20 years from now. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll be virtual holograms by then.
Yeah. Doing it.
Yeah, we'll only have to think it, and then our avatar will do.
Awesome.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, it was great talking to you, Mike. Hopefully this won't be the last time. And yeah, anyone that's out there, go check out Mike Conway Drums. You won't regret it. It's awesome channel.
Awesome, dude. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Alrighty, man. Take care.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks, man.
Alrighty.
Bye bye.